What if the most unbelievable stories about war were actually the true ones? Some movies don't just show the fight, they feel it. Every muddy trench, every shaky command, every second of human chaos captured just as it was. These films didn't invent the drama, history already did that. And as you'll see, the line between authenticity and artistry can get startlingly thin, sometimes too thin for comfort. Number 15. All Quiet on the Western Front, 2022. Some films pretend to show you war. This one makes you feel trapped inside it. Netflix's modern retelling of All Quiet on the Western Front isn't just another remake, it's a full-blown immersion into the First World War, seen through the eyes of German soldiers who thought they were marching toward glory. Instead, they walked straight into despair. Based on Erich Maria Remarque's legendary novel, this adaptation keeps the spirit raw and immediate. Every frame is a painting of mud, fear, and futility. The camera rarely blinks. You hear the earth groan, the sky roar, and the silence afterward, the kind of silence that says everything. Historians have praised its unflinching realism, from the era's authentic gear and uniforms to the emotional truth of men fighting without knowing why. Even the smallest details, like the trembling of hands or the sound of distant rumbling, carry documentary-level precision. What makes it truly haunting, though, is its quiet honesty. There are no perfect heroes, no inspiring speeches, just boys who started out believing in honor and ended up questioning existence itself. This film doesn't glorify battle, it buries the illusion of it. And by the final moment, you're left with a truth that no classroom ever taught. Nobody really wins. Number 14. Battle of Britain, 1969. It's the film that turned the skies into history's greatest chessboard. Battle of Britain recreated one of the most pivotal moments of the Second World War, when outnumbered Royal Air Force pilots faced the might of Hitler's Luftwaffe with a level of realism few directors have dared to match since. Shot using authentic planes, not studio models, it's a visual time capsule. Real Spitfires, Hurricanes, and Messerschmitts take flight in dazzling dogfights filmed with almost documentary precision. The aerial cinematography, staged under the guidance of actual wartime pilots, gives you that gut-level sense of what it was like to defend Britain's skies against impossible odds. But this isn't just a film about courage, it's about endurance. The sleepless nights, the empty fuel tanks, the aching fear that your luck could end any second. No computer graphics, no cinematic polish, just real machines and real sweat. The production itself was a mammoth operation involving more than 100 restored aircraft. Even the sound design was carefully modeled after real engine recordings from the period. And yet the movie's biggest achievement might be its restraint. It never paints war as glamorous. Instead, it celebrates survival, the thin, trembling thread of determination that saved a nation from falling. Watching it today feels like peering straight into the eye of history's storm. Number 13. A Bridge Too Far, 1977. Hollywood loves victory stories. This isn't one of them. A Bridge Too Far is that rare war epic that celebrates failure, the kind that teaches more than triumph ever could. Based on Operation Market Garden, the ambitious Allied mission to seize bridges across the Netherlands, it's a film about hope collapsing under the weight of reality. Director Richard Attenborough assembled one of the greatest casts ever: Sean Connery, Gene Hackman, Michael Caine, and then dropped them right into chaos. And not movie chaos. The kind you can almost smell. Filmed on actual Dutch locations where the real battle took place, it recreates every logistical misstep and every desperate gamble that defined the mission. The attention to historical accuracy is staggering. Real battle maps, authentic uniforms, and first-hand accounts used to design every scene. Even the vehicles were exact models used in the operation. But the power of A Bridge Too Far lies in its tone. It doesn't glorify strategy, it exposes it. Every confident command slowly unravels into confusion. Every carefully drawn plan falls apart under rain, panic, and poor communication. By the end, you don't just watch defeat, you understand it. The result is a film that doesn't lie to you. Sometimes history's most honest moments aren't the victories, they're the mistakes we barely survived. Number 12. Full Metal Jacket, 1987. The first half breaks you. The second half shows you what's left. Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket remains one of the most chillingly authentic portrayals of the Vietnam era, and not just because of its battle scenes. It's the psychological accuracy that hits hardest. Kubrick built the first act around Marine Corps boot camp, led by real-life drill instructor R. Lee Ermey, who improvised most of his dialogue. His brutal rhythm and control turned those scenes into near-documentary moments. Veterans later said it was the most accurate depiction of basic training ever filmed, down to the smell of fear in the barracks. When the story shifts to Vietnam, it's not the explosions that define it, but the emptiness. Kubrick used real accounts from soldiers, consulting with war correspondents and veterans to shape dialogue and detail. Every burned-out building, every stare into nothingness, it all feels uncomfortably real. Rather than preaching politics, Full Metal Jacket studies transformation, how innocence becomes numbness, how identity cracks under discipline, and how absurdity replaces reason. It's dark, it's cold, but it's also truthful. Kubrick didn't want to make you watch war. He wanted to make you question why we ever try to film it. The result is both cinematic and unsettling, a masterpiece where the loudest moments are sometimes the quietest ones. Number 11. Paths of Glory, 1957. Before Kubrick gave us the chaos of Full Metal Jacket, he gave us the conscience of Paths of Glory. Set during the First World War, this film follows French soldiers ordered to launch a hopeless attack and the officer who dares to stand up against his superiors when the mission ends in disaster. Shot in stark black and white, the film's realism lies in its restraint. The trenches look wet, claustrophobic, and endless because they were. Kubrick insisted on authenticity, using actual war photos to design the sets. The camera moves through them like a restless ghost, showing soldiers who are already halfway broken before the battle even starts. Kirk Douglas delivers one of his most powerful performances as Colonel Dax, a man torn between duty and decency. The story itself is based on real military cases where soldiers were punished for refusing suicidal orders, and that's what makes it timeless. It's not just about war, it's about accountability. When Paths of Glory premiered, it was banned in several countries for daring to criticize military leadership. But today it stands as one of the earliest and most truthful examinations of moral courage under impossible circumstances. Kubrick didn't need flashy effects or grand speeches. He only needed a muddy trench, a doomed order, and a question that still echoes through time: when obedience becomes cruelty. Who's really the hero? Number 10. Glory, 1989. Some war stories are about courage under fire. This one's about courage before the battle even begins. Glory tells the story of the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment, one of the first all-African American units to fight for the Union during the American Civil War. And while many films turn conflict into spectacle, Glory focuses on dignity, fear, and purpose. Director Edward Zwick drew heavily from the personal letters of Colonel Robert Gould Shaw, played by Matthew Broderick, to ensure the film's historical backbone stayed intact. The soldiers' dialogue wasn't Hollywood invention, it came from real correspondence, journals, and military records. Historians even confirmed the authenticity of the regiment's uniforms, training routines, and battlefield formations. But what gives Glory its staying power is the emotional truth it captures. The bond between Shaw and his men, including standout performances from Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman, is rooted in respect, not fantasy. These were men fighting not just for victory, but for recognition in a world that refused to see them as equals. The climactic charge on Fort Wagner is brutal and unforgettable. Zwick refused to soften the reality. Chaos, exhaustion, and selflessness dominate every frame. Even the sound of marching feet was recorded using historically accurate boots on sand, identical to South Carolina's coastline. By the end, you realize Glory isn't about one regiment. It's about what happens when courage outlasts prejudice. A film that gets history right and the humanity even more so. Number 9. Downfall, 2004. How do you show evil without turning it into a cartoon? Downfall found the answer. This German-made masterpiece pulls you deep into Hitler's final days inside his Berlin bunker. Based on first-hand accounts and memoirs from those who actually lived through it, Downfall doesn't rely on exaggeration, it relies on precision. Bruno Ganz's portrayal of Hitler isn't sympathetic, it's chillingly human, and that's what makes it so disturbing. Every twitch, every delusional rant, every glance of denial is taken directly from documented eyewitness reports. The production team even used photographs of the original bunker to rebuild it down to the wallpaper. What separates Downfall from most films is its refusal to invent villains or heroes. It shows ordinary people trapped in a collapsing ideology, scrambling to justify the unjustifiable. You feel the paranoia, the claustrophobia, and the total moral decay. When it premiered, the film caused outrage for showing Hitler as a person rather than a symbol, but that's the point. By removing the myth, Downfall exposes the terrifying reality. Evil isn't supernatural, it's disturbingly human. Critics hailed it as one of the most historically faithful depictions of Nazi Germany's end. Every quote, uniform, and decision was double-checked against archival material. Even the actors' accents were regionally accurate. The result? A film that feels less like fiction and more like a time machine, grim, truthful, and impossible to look away from. Number 8. Dunkirk, 2017. It's rare for a film to make you feel like you're living history in real time, but Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk pulls that off in ways few others can. This isn't a film about speeches or strategy, it's about survival. The real-life evacuation of Dunkirk during the Second World War was one of the most desperate rescue efforts in human history, and Nolan built the entire movie around authenticity. He shot on the actual beaches of Dunkirk, used real restored boats, and minimized digital effects to preserve the raw experience. Every sound you hear, the engines, the waves, the heartbeat, was recorded live. Even the Spitfires were real aircraft filmed in flight, not computer-generated. The film's structure is pure chaos by design, mirroring what the soldiers felt: confusion, time distortion, and fear. The timelines, land, sea, and air, overlap like the layers of human panic. It's not a documentary, but it feels like one wearing the clothes of a thriller. Historians and veterans praised its realism, especially the depiction of exhaustion and uncertainty. There's no blood-soaked glory here, just endurance, the courage of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. In the end, Dunkirk reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories are simply about making it home. No fake heroics, no melodrama, just the sound of a ticking clock and hope refusing to die. Number 7. Das Boot, 1981. Ever wondered what it feels like to live inside a metal coffin under the sea? That's Das Boot, 2.5 hours of pure claustrophobic authenticity. Director Wolfgang Petersen didn't make a war movie. He made a pressure chamber. Based on the real-life experiences of German journalist Lothar Günther Buchheim, who served aboard a U-boat during the Second World War, Das Boot is so faithful that even submariners call it the most accurate depiction ever filmed. Every set was built from blueprints of an actual U-boat right down to the creaking pipes and dripping condensation. The camera work adds to the realism. Long, unbroken shots move through the submarine's narrow corridors as if the viewer is part of the crew, sweating, gasping, and counting every breath. The lighting, powered by flickering bulbs and red emergency lamps, gives the sense of oxygen running out as time collapses in around you. Even the sound was recorded inside an enclosed set to replicate true underwater acoustics. Petersen demanded such realism that his actors lived together in the cramped set for months, emerging pale and exhausted just like real sailors would have. But here's the twist. Das Boot isn't about winning or losing. It's about humanity trapped between duty and despair. No side looks heroic. No victory feels worth the cost. It's one of those rare films that strips away all propaganda and leaves only the echo of breathing in the dark, haunting, unforgettable, and brutally honest. Number 6. 1917. 2019. What would it be like to walk through a nightmare and never blink once? Sam Mendes's 1917 doesn't just show the First World War, it drags you through it, one unbroken shot at a time. Inspired by his grandfather's stories, Mendes and cinematographer Roger Deakins crafted an illusion of a single continuous take, following two soldiers on a mission through enemy territory. Every muddy step, every trembling pause feels lived in. The film's production used real trenches built over months of research and consultation with military historians. Even the landscapes were chosen based on original battlefield maps. And instead of relying on visual effects, the crew shot in natural light because the sky itself was history's spotlight. The soundscape deserves its own medal. Every distant boom, every rustling leaf was recorded to mirror what soldiers would have actually heard in the chaos of war. No score-driven manipulation, just nature and fear working together. While 1917 compresses events for storytelling, the emotion and accuracy remain flawless. Mendes wasn't chasing spectacle, he was chasing immersion. The way exhaustion turns into determination and isolation becomes the only companion mirrors what countless letters from soldiers described in chilling detail. By the time the credits roll, you're not watching heroes, you're walking beside them. It's not war told from above, but from the dirt, breath, and heartbeat of history itself. Number 5. We Were Soldiers, 2002. Some films tell you what war looked like. This one tells you what it felt like. We Were Soldiers, directed by Randall Wallace, chronicles the real events of the Ia Drang Valley in 1965, the first major confrontation between American and Vietnamese forces. It's based on Lieutenant General Hal Moore's memoir, co-written with reporter Joseph Galloway, and both men were on set to ensure every detail rang true. Mel Gibson portrays Moore not as a legend but as a leader defined by conviction. The production used real battle maps, precise troop numbers, and actual communications from the operation. Veterans later said the terrain, the formations, even the way the dust clung to skin felt authentic. But what makes We Were Soldiers stand out is its balance between chaos and compassion. It shows the soldiers' determination in the field and the quiet heartbreak of their families at home without turning either into melodrama. Every moment feels grounded in lived experience, from the nervous anticipation before deployment to the eerie calm after each clash. Wallace's insistence on realism paid off. The cast underwent intensive boot camp training, learning how to move and think like real troops. And the film's pacing captures that strange rhythm of war. Long stretches of waiting punctuated by seconds that feel like forever. When Moore says, "We will leave no one behind," it's not Hollywood bravado. It's history speaking, and the film honors that with unshakable honesty. Number 4. Come and See, 1985. If realism had a face, it would be pale, trembling, and covered in ash. Come and See is not an easy film to watch or to forget. Directed by Elim Klimov, this Soviet masterpiece follows a teenage boy who joins the resistance in German-occupied Belarus. What unfolds is one of cinema's most devastatingly accurate portraits of human suffering during wartime occupation. The screenplay was co-written with Ales Adamovich, a survivor who collected eyewitness testimonies from real villagers. Many scenes recreate specific atrocities that took place across Eastern Europe, down to the smallest visual detail. The production even used authentic uniforms, burned real buildings, and shot on location in Belarusian forests, still scarred by history. Klimov refused to glamorize anything. The camera lingers where others would look away not to shock, but to remember. The young actor Alexei Kravchenko underwent months of psychological preparation, and much of his visible fear on screen is real. To enhance realism, Klimov filmed in chronological order, allowing the actor's mental and physical exhaustion to build naturally. Come and See is more than a war movie. It's a memorial. Its realism is emotional as much as factual. It captures the way trauma echoes long after the noise fades. When the credits roll, you don't feel entertained. You feel awakened. And that, perhaps, is the truest kind of accuracy there is. Number 3. Black Hawk Down, 2001. Most war films show strategy from a distance. This one drops you straight into the streets. Ridley Scott's Black Hawk Down recounts the 1993 Battle of Mogadishu, a mission that spiraled into a day-long fight for survival. It's based on journalist Mark Bowden's meticulously researched book, and that attention to fact translates to every frame. Scott's team consulted directly with veterans who were there, rebuilding the event block by block, the vehicles, the timing, the radio chatter. The actors trained alongside real service members for weeks, learning their hand signals, squad formations, and discipline. The goal wasn't style, it was truth. What results is sensory overload, whirling dust, blinding sunlight, and disorientation so real you can almost taste it. The film's editing replicates the confusion of being trapped in a city where directions, language, and safety blur together. There are no clean victories, only endurance. Critics praised Black Hawk Down for capturing the bonds between soldiers rather than the politics around them. Every line feels pulled from memory, not a script. It's relentless, yes, but so was the reality. By the end, you understand why the veterans who saw it said, "That's exactly how it felt, chaotic, loud, and far too real." It's not a film about triumph. It's about surviving the impossible and living with what you remember. Number 2. Letters from Iwo Jima, 2006. When Clint Eastwood decided to tell the story of Iwo Jima, he did something radical. He told it from the other side. Letters from Iwo Jima is based on the real correspondence of General Tadamichi Kiribayashi and the Japanese soldiers who defended the island in 1945. Every line, every emotion comes from those handwritten words buried beneath volcanic soil for decades. Eastwood rebuilt the tunnels and trenches using the original Japanese engineering plans. The actors spoke entirely in Japanese, guided by historians and language experts to preserve dialect accuracy. Even the lighting was modeled on the island's real geography, harsh, gray, and unforgiving. What makes the film extraordinary is its empathy. It doesn't invent villains, it restores humanity. You see men writing to wives, joking with friends, and accepting the impossible to fight a battle they know they can't win. This is not sentimentality, it's documentation wrapped in artistry. Paired with its companion film, Flags of Our Fathers, it forms a complete picture of one battle from two opposing perspectives, something rarely attempted in cinema. The result is hauntingly sincere. When the final letters are read, you realize that the greatest act of remembrance isn't in statues or ceremonies, it's in understanding. Letters from Iwo Jima bridges empathy and history so perfectly that it feels less like watching a movie and more like reading the soul of a lost generation. Number 1. Saving Private Ryan, 1998. You've seen war movies before, but not like this. When Steven Spielberg released Saving Private Ryan, veterans sat in theaters trembling. Some walked out in tears. Many said it was the closest they'd ever come to reliving the D-Day landing without stepping back in time. The opening 27 minutes, that chaotic stretch on Omaha Beach, changed cinema forever. Spielberg used 1,500 extras, including real veterans and amputees, to recreate the confusion of June 6, 1944. Instead of storyboarding, he let the scenes unfold naturally, following handheld cameras through smoke and sand. Everything was designed to feel authentic. Real uniforms aged by salt water, authentic landing craft, and the same weather patterns as that historic morning. Even the color palette was desaturated in post-production to mimic period film stock and the bleached look of wartime photography. But it's not just the technical accuracy that makes Saving Private Ryan iconic, it's the emotional one. Spielberg and screenwriter Robert Rodat built their story around true accounts of families who received those dreaded telegrams. The mission to find one surviving brother may be fictional, but the sacrifice behind it is painfully real. By the time the credits roll, you don't feel like you've watched entertainment, you feel like you've witnessed history remembering itself. It's messy, heartbreaking, and deeply human, and that's why Saving Private Ryan remains the gold standard for authenticity, not just in war films, but in storytelling itself. So which of these films left you speechless or made you see history differently? The most accurate war movies don't just recreate battles, they resurrect memories, giving faces to names we might have forgotten. If you learned something new today, drop a comment below, hit that like button, and share this with someone who loves true cinematic craftsmanship. because sometimes the closest we get to understanding the past is when the screen dares to tell it honestly.